Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another very special episode of the Film Alchemist podcast. It's October, the horror movie mega marathon. We're deep into the abyss of the horror genre, guys. 31 days, 31 pods. Before we get started with today's amazing episode, a little bit of business, guys. It's official. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/Film Alchemist pod, guys. It's the best way to help us grow the show. It's the best way to make this show exactly what you want. For as little as $1 a month, guys, you can get into the community, start palling around, see all the cool stuff we're working on as you go up the very scientific Highlander tier ranking systems. You guys will be able to select movies that you want us to talk about specifically in a Patreon exclusive library. So this allows you to get exactly what you want, guys. And we love doing that for you. It's really been an amazing experience. We love our patrons so much. Thank you, patrons. And for those of you who are about to be patrons, thank you too. It means the world to us that you guys show support, and it's helping us take these next steps that we've been really working hard to obtain. So we are on bended knee. Thank you, guys. Again, patreon.com/Film Alchemist pod. Go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, Film Alchemist. You can see video versions of most of our discussions there, along with some other cool stuff we've been rolling out. That's a lot of fun. We're trying to grow over there, guys. That's another way you can check us out. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, and you can find us on all the social media you're on. We're very easy to get a hold of, and we love hearing from you guys. So feel free to drop us to the line, as the olds say, the olds, which I'm rapidly becoming a part of. Oh, right. Before I get really sad and existential about my age, let's move on. All right, guys, today we're joined by the great Rachel Reeves. You guys have heard her on this show several times. Rachel is amazing, and she is doing so much good work right now. She's writing everywhere. She is an official co-host of the Losers Club podcast, the Stephen King podcast. It's amazing. They're doing great work over there. So for Rachel to carve out a little time for a couple of dinguses like me and Alex, I know means the world to both of us. She's fantastic. So today, Rachel decided she would like to talk about a 90s gem, which somehow I missed, man. I couldn't believe it. Idle Hands, horror comedy classic of the 90s. I was one, stunned I had never seen it, and two, stunned by how much I really liked it. It seems like the kind of movie that wasn't going to work for me a lot, and it really did. Just a really exciting movie, an exciting time to get to talk to Rachel. She is I just love that she's just funny. She always has really interesting little insights, right? She's very knowledgeable about the movies that she brings on our show, so I always feel like I gain a deeper appreciation when we're fortunate enough to sit down with her. She's just a really cool person, and we're very lucky to count her among our friends. And as you can see, she's a great podcaster. So again, make sure to go find her podcast and all the writing that Rachel does. She's a great person. You owe it to yourself to follow her amazing work. We wish her all the best and thank her so much again for making the time. It really does warm our little black horror movie infested hearts. All right, guys. Again, patreon.com/Film Alchemist pod. Go join us in the fight to grow this community. Follow, subscribe, all that good shit. You guys know what it is. 31 days, 31 pods. We're doing a lot this month because we love horror movies, and we love all of you that do this journey with us every year. It is truly our favorite thing about this podcast, except for getting to talk to people like Rachel. So without any more of my blabbing, Idle Hands. All right, guys, welcome back. This is an exciting one. Our friend Rachel Reeves to the Halloween Mega Marathon.
Hey, guys. So excited to be here and so excited to talk about this movie with you.
Yes, this is going to be a very popular selection. I have a guess. Rachel, would you like to introduce to the people who are new here what you're working on and where they can find you online?
Sure. Yeah. So, yes, my name is Rachel. I am a freelance film writer. You can find my stuff all over the place. Mainly, my main home is at Rue Morgue. You can also find me on Valingo and some other sites like Daily Grindhouse, and I've worked with Dread Central on some stuff, so all over the place. But yeah, and then I'm also a official loser co-host on the Losers Club podcast, a Stephen King podcast.
So
awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, we're on the Bloody Disgusting podcast network, and it's a blast. So many fun people there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can catch those episodes all the time, dropping new stuff all the time. So yeah,
you are very busy, and all your stuff is awesome. You do amazing writing about the people who make music for movies often, right? That's how I actually found you. We connected over your piece about the Predator score, which I loved.
Thanks.
Oh, it's so good. You are beyond amazing. But it makes a lot of sense when I think about your writing in that way, why you chose today's movie. Would you like to introduce why this movie?
Yes. So today we are talking about Idle Hands, and I'm so excited. I love this movie. It's just such a glorious time capsule. It's got, yes, like you said, killer soundtrack, and also a killer score.
Yes.
So killer music all around. The cast is stacked. It's so funny, so well executed. To me, it's just so perfectly, genuinely, intentionally stupid that it's just perfect. So can't wait to kind of tear it apart.
Yes, there was something watching it, because this is a strange thing, right? Is I know everyone who listens to this, right, and is familiar with us knows that I'm very much this creature of the 90s, right? That's where all of my defining moments occurred, was in the 90s. Somehow I'd never seen this movie, right? A 90s guy who's an avid horror fan. I had never seen this movie until you said you wanted to talk about it. So this was a really fun experience for me, because I had known it existed. I had heard about it. It was one of those, I'll watch that sometime. And just never did, right? Whether it wasn't on the streamers I had, or I just never bought a copy. And it was really wild to watch it today and just be like, holy shit, like, remember these movies? Alex, what was your experience with Idle Hands?
I'm with Rachel. I love this movie. I saw this I think, or like maybe a year or two after it came out, because like it was 99, so it's like the cusp of the internet and learning what things are without like having to like read a magazine. I think I might have read it in a magazine, actually, now that I think about it. Like, I don't know. Either way, though, I was so stoked to see this movie, because it was it was like the third possession movie. I was like watching a lot of movies about like demonic possession. I'm like, oh my god, a movie with that Devon Sawa guy and a hand.
Teen heartthrob Devon Sawa?
A hand that's possessed by the devil. Oh my god. And there's that hot girl who has cool short hair and all these other cool things. Like, it was all this like cool shit. And then of course, I think actually I might have read about it in a music magazine, because they said that The Offspring had a cameo in the movie, and I was like, and I like The Offspring.
They were so crucial to slumber parties back then. I remember getting the it had Pretty Fly for a White Guy, but it also had
I think it's called Americana.
Yeah.
Americana, that's right. But they had the Kids Aren't Okay, I think the song was called.
Yep.
And it was one of those like really young things when we'd be at sleepovers, like playing Magic the Gathering, being like, yeah, man, no one gets us. Like, so the Offspring was like a
turn on Pretty Fly for a White Guy. Nobody understands what we're going through.
We are fly. We are cool as fuck. Two mana. You know. But it was just this weird fucking movie, and I think that's what struck me about it, because this is essentially like if you went to like a screenwriting like weekend workshop, this is how they tell you to build a movie, right?
Yeah.
Title first. Come up with the title. Think of a catchy title, and then you build out, because the mechanics of this movie, I don't know exactly what's happening at any point in the film, right? Like, why does the devil or whatever spirit it may be imbibe this loser with the power? I mean, it's one of those like, all right, don't get too into it, but the idea of idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? And that premise seems so rife. Like, I can't believe that wasn't already a film, right?
Yeah.
How do you go from that little saying that all our moms would say, right, to this version of this film? What do you think is the magic sauce about this blending of horror and comedy, Rachel?
Well, I think that the people behind it, the writers, the director, they knew what they were doing. They were writing about something that they were familiar with, and they didn't take it too seriously, and they kept it simple. And that really benefits this whole thing. They had a really simple idea for these characters. And yeah, just like you said, there's a lot of logic stuff that you just kind of have to apply the don't think about it rule.
Yeah.
And you just don't think about it. Just keep going. It's fine. Everything's
you're just
fine
like the
here.
devil works in mysterious ways. Absolutely.
I think because it's so weird, like it is one of those things where like it's not even necessarily a don't think about it. It's more like a I'm so unconcerned. Like it's not a matter of not thinking about it. It's literally like I'm not concerned because I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. Like this is so insane.
I think the comedy is so well done that they put the comedy before the horror, but they didn't skimp on the horror. They understood the importance of that. And I think the director, what's his name? Rodman Flender, which is also just the best name ever.
What a name. Yeah, Jesus H.
I mean, he understood horror, and he really like paid attention to both of those aspects. So even though, they might have been leaning a little bit heavier in the writing on the comedy angle, they didn't skimp on the horror. So it just really marries the two just so perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm again also really into horror movies, right? But I always find myself a little bit at odds with the community because I'm not an enormous fan of the horror comedy blend, right? Because I feel like so many of them end up not really being funny, right? Like they're not funny enough to exist as a comedy. And the horror almost gets in the way or is then somehow lessened to the point where there's nothing really scary or reflective about the acts that are happening, right? It's just like being at a Gallagher show, right? It's jokes and like exploding watermelons. And you're like, that's fine. I'll bring my tarp, but like, it's not going to be memorable for me. And I think to your point, right? You see it right away in the opening scene. That's a really well laid out horror movie beat, right? Where's our son? Something's under our bed. I hear a sound. It's really well paced and played out. So I think you get right away, because there is a bit of the comedy in this, right? Like the moment you see Eldon Henson and Seth Green's character, I think it's one of those things, if you weren't like a young person in the 90s, you forget the just Armageddon level impact that Kevin Smith had on movies for teenagers.
Yeah.
Because after Clerks came out, every movie had these stoner characters that talked like these kind of like
every movie had the
people
who were waxing poetic about things that were absolutely meaningless.
Yeah, it's kind of these like eloquent words in like the mouth of rubes, right? Like they're just overly talking, and everyone does like the sex joke and shit. And so they're very Jay and Silent Bob, but again, the actors are just so fucking good. So I think right away, right, by the time that he leaves that basement to go chase Jessica Alba, you're like, they're really just leaning on all of these tried and true tropes of these kind of movies, but they're doing them all exceptionally well. So the little rough edges, they don't really bother you as much.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, that cast, I mean,
unbelievable.
You think about the movies that were coming out during this time. So you've got like Scream and The Faculty. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Just these powerhouse of teen horror films coming out with these casts that were just so hot and fresh, and like these actors that were just undeniably like just rocketing to stardom, right? And these casting directors at the time were just nailing it, and Idle Hands did that really well. They paid attention. And Seth Green, I mean, he was probably at the time, I could be mistaken, but out of the kids, he was probably the most famous. And then, Devon Sawa, child actor at that time. I guess he's still,
I was going to say the teen heartthrob magazines would probably pull Devon Sawa high. Eldon Henson was only the Bash brother from Mighty Ducks, right?
Yeah.
He was the big kid who never grew. And so he had to do like a 180 on the character he played, which I always thought was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I had so many Devon Sawa posters on my wall. Let me just tell you.
We all did. Let's not play coy.
Yeah, let's not play coy.
There, next
Once you
to,
saw Casper, you were like, "Oh my god!"
Little
Oh my
Giants.
God,
I mean, come on.
That's right.
He's right up there next to
the
JTT and Andrew
JTT.
Keegan, and oh boy.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? My friend actually used to do some video editing work with Andrew Keegan. I'm pretty sure, don't sue me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that guy's like a cult leader now.
Oh,
no, that's
100%.
No,
It's
he is.
100%
Because my
true.
buddy was getting recruited, and I was like, I think you should not hang out with Andrew Keegan
Yeah,
anymore.
no, that's the thing. They did like,
But
a
like
whole
we'd go to
documentary
Keggers
about
and
it.
he'd be there and be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I'd be like, "Hey, Andrew Keegan from like my childhood. Like, what are you doing here?"
Oh,
And yeah, I
man.
think he's like a full-on cult leader now. So
Yep.
that's got to lower him in the heart.
Yeah, Devin Sawa's definitely he's made a good comeback too.
Yeah.
So
My
that's
God.
nice.
This was like,
That's
and this
right.
this came out the year before Final Destination did. So he's like right at the cusp of being Devin Sawa again, because like
Yeah.
he did, I think it was like Casper, and then Now and Then, Little Giants was before all that. Wild
Giants,
America
yeah.
was the one that everybody was like, that was like the big.
Yeah.
That was the
that's
big,
right.
because I think that was him and Jonathan Taylor Thomas together.
Oh my God!
So like 99 2000
Bring
is
a
when
bucket
he's
and a
about
mop.
to hit. Like
Seriously.
but you're right. It's interesting you say it, like, because this movie is not filled. Like Devin Sawa is an amazing, he's an amazing little heartthrob, but he's not like, it wasn't like they were doing like I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is Ryan Phillippe and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like that is a movie about that is a movie cast specifically to
On
sell
cheekbones, it's just
to
all
sell
cheekbones.
cheekbones.
Yeah,
Like,
we're
it's
selling
crazy.
cheekbones in tank top people in that.
That's what I love about Idle Hands that is actually why I like Idle Hands so much more than a lot of these, because they lean so far into what I think is like really good comedy combined with like awesomely grotesque horror. Like some stuff
yes.
that is just some stuff is just like perfection. I've always like when Eldon Henson and Seth Green end up being the zombies, like their makeup, their looks are so great. Like that to me is iconic looks.
Oh yeah, there's some really incredible practical makeup effects in here, and pretty minuscule computer, CGI kind of stuff. Like a lot of it is really practical, and that's where I think that you see Rodman Flender in I've watched some interviews with him, and it's like, oh, this guy's like a horror guy. Like this guy knows his shit. And that's one of those things that you can tell, like he made a point to really make sure, like, nope, we're going to have some really gross shit and it's going to look really good.
Yeah.
And it pays off. That can make or break a film, as we all know. And it definitely helps really just seal the deal and give this one so much genuine heart and sincerity. That is why so many horror folks nowadays are just having such a soft spot for it, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's the thing. Again, getting back to, I think the horror comedy often stumbles with this, right? But this is very much, this feels like he's a student of Evil Dead, right? Like you're getting a lot of Evil Dead 2 vibes, because that movie is held up amongst the horror community as one of the all-time greatest films ever made, right? Because it is just this absolute blending of elements that seem like they won't work, right? You're doing this very intense woods survival, demonic, power, and they just have this like goofball Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin kind of guy in the middle running around, and it just feels like it wouldn't have worked. And once that movie came out, it kind of broke the mold for the things that you could do. And I gotta say, I've never really thought much about Devin Sawa in my life. Just kidding, wink. But he was really good in this
He's
movie.
a really good
He's
comedic
exceptionally good with that, because that's one of the things, like early in the film, I was like, is this gonna work for me for 90 whole minutes? Him doing the like,
Yeah.
I was surprised at how many ways he found to keep making that interesting. And that, obviously that's also direction and this and that. But I thought Devin Sawa was really fucking good in this movie, and I honestly was caught off guard by the performance he delivered. What do you think of Devin Sawa in this movie, Rachel?
Oh gosh, love it. He, his physical acting, like Devin Sawa the person, like his acting in this is incredible. Like he delivers so much, and like you're saying, it's not just, he's not just delivering the lines in a certain way. Like he's so physically involved in selling it and selling it well that it actually makes you believe it, and it doesn't get tired. And the way that he's able to find new ways to like mess around with that hand and like have it drag him all over the place, like that is incredible to me, especially at like such a young age. I don't know, for like a teenager to do that. I don't know how old he is. I assume he's a teenager, but it's so great. And I mean, the character Anton himself, like I think that the way that character is written is just so perfect, because I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but at this time in the late 90s, the way that teenagers and like these the MTV generation, right? Like how these kids were perceived, I think this is such a great embodiment of kind of societal stereotypes towards these angsty middle class teenagers stuck in suburbia, and that character really is just the epitome of that. And you brought up the parents, and so that very beginning scene when they set it up with those parents, you kind of see that it's like, okay, so they've got Fred Willard, right, who's like classic all American, like great dad, this super cute mom,
Connie Ray, so great.
Yeah, this giant house, this like nice house, right? That's decorated, like very cute mom. But Anton is in the attic. And it seems like
he's the Quasimodo guarding the house.
Like he doesn't have to be in the attic. Like just kind of what you see of the house, it's like, oh, there's plenty of rooms here. But he's choosing to live in the attic. Like he's choosing to like physically distance himself from the rest of his family, because that's what lazy teenagers do, right? You want to just like separate yourself, even though like he's got this really great family. I think that he has nothing to be angsty or bored about, but his life is actually just so privileged that he's just bored with it.
Well, I love the beat when he falls asleep with his headphones on, right? And that's why he can't hear the slaughter going on. Well, we think, right? Later we find out that's not why. But I love that he wakes up, takes the headphones off, and the music just kind of naturally goes into the Walkman or the Discman, right? So he switches and he's like, oh, I can't go 1 second without my brooding music.
Oh, yeah.
My angry, like, new metal. And I thought that was just because to your point, it gets to this thing that was happening, right? Where a lot of us, we were coming out of the greed is good 80s. Everything was good in the 90s, right? We had the .com explosion and everyone's making money. We had a surplus in the federal level government. Everyone's like, we're set, dude. We're killing this.
Yeah.
But teenagers are going to teenager, right? And they need something to fight against and be upset. I mean, this was something they talked about in that Woodstock doc, too. And it's one of those weird things living through it. I don't feel like that was ever present on our mind. We're just like, shit's hard for us. Like, we weren't thinking in a bigger level like that. But there is something to that. And the fact that this kid can't even go 1 second without his music, you know, to get him through this pattern, I really liked the way this is played, right? And I think the way that this movie is also different, to your point, is that a lot of the teenagers in these movies, right? Like when you watch Scream or Final Destination and this and that, these look like 35-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, borderline like pornography castings, right? Where they're just like, they're so attractive and they're so muscly. And you're like, I went to high school, and like even the buff guys, it's like acne and like, we're all mutants at that point, right? We're not like this. This felt like people I would have known, right? Even the character who's just working on his truck all day. Yeah. I knew that guy, right? I knew the stoner friends, right? We all probably had a little bit of Anton in us. And so there's something that is just so disarming about that, right? It feels very comfortable. And I love that about this movie.
Yeah. I think that you're right about, because, okay, so in the 90s, it's like there was like this resurgence of like kind of 50s suburban sentimentality for that time. And I think just so many kids, I mean, myself included, like when this came out, like I was 14 years old, and I definitely felt this way too. It's not like, okay, I had everything, like all the privilege and whatever, but it wasn't that I didn't want that. I didn't want that life. And I think a lot of teenagers felt that. And like you said, there was nothing really to like fight against. Everything was fine. But it was like, well, I don't want this. Like, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want this white picket fence, this
Right.
suburban lifestyle. So
Yeah.
instead,
This
I'm
Andy
just going to
Griffith
be
bullshit. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I'm gonna be angry, or I'm just gonna, my way of rebelling is I'm just gonna sit in the basement with my friends and just waste this life that I have because I don't know what else to do with it. So I'm just gonna get high and
Yeah.
just sit here.
I mean, I think that's what it is. Like those sort of like 50s values, so to speak. It was like the 90s were that on steroids. Like
Yeah.
like not only that, but like because of television being what television became in the 90s, like you also have the 700 Club, the advent of like for like heavy for profit Christianity, like this kind of thing that like really pushed a lot of these values that none of us necessarily grew up with the way that like our parents might have. So what I love about Anton's character is, of course, it's not even like a matter like, oh, idle hands, this kid got possessed, his hand got possessed by the devil because he wasn't doing anything.
Well,
It's like,
idle hand. His other hand was very busy, as he reminds
but
us.
like yeah, I know. But like the aloofness of Anton is what I
Yeah.
think is the best like aspect of like the character, because I honestly think the first 20 minutes of this movie are absolutely flawless. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like Buster Keaton bits, like nonstop. But also, it's just this. It's a really, really wonderful time, like not time capsule, but it's a wonderful encapsulation of a character that we all kind of were. Because I agree with both of you. Like, look, my parents were nice people. We grew up like in these like developments, and developments were being developed around us, and it was crazy. And I was constantly like, why are there so many houses around here? Jesus Christ! And but that's exactly what it is. Like, it's this like insulation that kind of starts to suffocate you. So yeah, like you end up finding refuge in other things. And I mean, it could be anything, but Anton's choice to sleep in the attic, and then Anton's inability to give a shit about anything else around him, particularly like when he shows up in Seth Green and Eldon Henson's basement, they even be like, yeah, dude, that's what you get for not coming to school for like 2 months or what. However, like it was absurd amount of time he had not been in school. And you're like, oh my God, like now those kids would be like hauled off to juvenile hall or like, I don't know, put in a home somewhere. It's a really, really fascinating way to introduce a character, and also introduce just the general ethos of what we were all experiencing at that point.
Well, just even something as simple, right, as he has this life-saving apparatus around his neck, right, an inhaler.
Yep.
And then you find out he doesn't need that. He uses it as a bong, right, which lets you know, like, his parents were probably these overprotective types, and did he really need that? And then even then, like, one of the strangest horror beats of this is just the fact that this kid does not realize his parents have been murdered they make it seem like it's been like a week.
Yeah, he says,
Like,
I
a
haven't
while.
seen them
He says
in
I haven't seen him in like a week.
days.
Yeah.
And that's insane, right? Like, just the thought of he's just existing in this world, and the only way he knows that something is afoot is he can't have his fucking cereal,
Yeah.
right? And that there are just these really interesting world buildings, right? And I do think there is something Lebowski-like with this, right? Which I remember reading about Lebowski. The theory was, what if we took just this everyday, checked out in life kind of losery guy and put him into a Hollywood movie story where these bigger and crazier things are happening? And this actually worked really well in this movie, right? You put this man who's fighting the devil, and really his biggest thing is he's like, I just want to score with the neighbor girl, and I just want to smoke pot.
Yeah.
And there is something really funny about this, ultimate battle of good and evil. We have like an RV Druid lady flying around, adding gravitas. And it's
Vivica A.
just,
Fox.
yeah, she's awesome
Choice
in this
casting.
movie. And that's what I
So
mean, right?
good.
So there's like this attempt to add this giant mythology to this, right? This is the ultimate battle, as far as a lot of our ancestors are concerned, and this and that. And we just reduce it to this guy who's like, oh, bummer, man. Like, now I got to dig a hole. And it really is just amazingly doled out throughout the film.
Yeah, and it's like he does have growth because but it's not like a crazy movie character arc, right? Like
No.
at the most, once he finds his parents dead, once he accidentally kills his friends, and after he chops off his hand, like in theory, he could be done. And if he was really as checked out as he was, he would have just walked away, but he didn't. He went to the dance to save this girl, right? And it's like, while that's not like a huge thing, it does show some growth on his part. And I like that.
You're
That's
not
like,
wrong.
like I like that. That's pretty much it, though. And it's just a little bit. It does show that, like,
It's the right amount of growth.
Like,
it's not this. Yeah.
no, it's true to his character. Like, it's like a lot for him. It's like, oh, good job, Anton. You like decided to like get dressed and leave your house, and like thought of others. Like, you thought of this girl. You really do care for her, like on some level.
It is the slight step up, right? It's kind of the bookend, like Anton doing action scenes with him when he's like, can you please just bring me pot? And he's like, walk your ass over here, bitch. Like, you can fucking come get your own pot.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see Anton like, and like
He
loaf across
doesn't
the
put
street.
on pants, just walking
Right.
through
So
the
they tell us
streets.
early he'll do just the bare minimum to like get his little creature comfort, which later we find out his creature comfort becomes a girl who is exceptionally out of his league, which was also something that happened all the time in these teen comedies, right?
Again, there's a lot of wish fulfillment happening in this time of our lives, okay?
Yes.
And one of them is for sure Jessica Alba's like a hardcore punk rock chick who writes lyrics, and you're like, oh, I could be with that girl because I like lyrics. Like it's like that kind of thing. And I'm like, I thought the whole time, like, a girl that cool could be into a guy like me. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing. That's an amazing wish fulfillment. And I took that. That's why I'm married now.
That's one of those things in movies that I felt the opposite. Like, there it is, girls in school. Like, I felt ashamed, like, if I was in their presence, where I'm like, I'm sorry. Like,
Okay.
I'm just sorry. Like, we are not in the same zoo. Like, I'm out of here.
Classic Griff.
Okay, so while we're on this subject, I do have to say this character of Molly is literally the only thing that keeps this from being a 5-star movie for me.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yes.
Walk us through it.
All right,
Besides the
I'm gonna
obvious,
walk you
like,
through it.
besides the obvious, right?
All right, so Jessica Alba, I mean, she's stunning, like perfect as far as like the look for this film.
Sure.
Great girl next door. I love it. When she rides up on that scooter or the bike or whatever, and she drops her notebook, like everything leading up to it is so great.
Mm-hmm.
But then when he finally interacts with her, she's such a ditz. Like, you want her to be this teenage punk rocker, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she's not. Like, she's so ditzy. And she immediately is like, oh, you got my notebook? Cool. Like, you want to hang out? Like, it's so
Yeah.
like, what are they, like, dream girl, like pixie dream girl, that kind of
Well, it is
stereotype
this, like,
that they had.
it is this rose-colored glasses. I'll agree. Like, watching it this time, I was like, oh god. Like, I probably would spend you'd spend like 5 minutes with that person and be like, I gotta go. Like,
Oh, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just a very shallow depiction, I think, of what she could have
absolutely.
been.
She should
I
have
mean,
been
they make her wear a lingerie angel costume to the high school party. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And
she should have been this hardcore. She should have been like
you
this.
want her to be a little more
tsunami bomb.
Yeah, you want her to be she's all
skate
that,
girl.
right? That's what you
Yeah.
want. You want her to have some she's all that quality, right? She
Or
knows
like
she has
10
value.
things I hate about you, like a little
Yeah.
Julia
A
Stiles,
little Julia
like, a little
Stiles,
Shrew.
yeah.
Like, she doesn't have a lot of depth and like the agency that they set her up for. She ends up just kind of being a caricature of like this ideal personification.
Maybe this is a shot at the punk is dead thing that was going on with the 90s in Green Day, right? Maybe they're like, there are no more real punk. I'm saying I saw the shirt. I don't agree. Dookie is one of the seminal albums of my life. I love Green Day dearly. But I remember going to the store to buy Green Day CDs and like the snobby shit you would hear.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I got
that's
made,
not real punk. Or you'd go to
I got
Warped
made
Tour and
fun
they're
of hard in high school. So I graduated high school in 2003, but I was a huge Green Day fan like all through high school. And this was like before American Idiot, before they really made their comeback, and I got made fun of. Like, oh, Green Day, like they're so old. Like, oh my God, like sellouts. Like, why do you even like them anymore?
That's always like it's funny too. This movie is like laden, by the way, with a lot besides like the Offspring, the Burger Lounge kid who gets kicked off the stand is Tom DeLonge.
Yeah,
like
Blink 182.
This movie is laden with music references and that kind of shit. But yeah, I remember I never understood like selling out is exactly what every band is trying to do like the entire time. It made no sense to me when I was younger. And I'm like, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Aren't you supposed
it's
to
one
do
of
that?
the most tiresome debates that like I thought would disappear as I got older, and it doesn't. Like we still have these stupid fights. It's because
now it's so much worse.
I think punk was the music of Outkast, right? And he became like an armor. And then you don't want to see the cool kids who already have everything right take your music.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
I mean,
it's the God shouldn't give with so many hands theory, right?
Yeah, and the Offspring are playing a Ramones song at the dance, so I think there's something.
Yeah, but
sure.
even then, like to your point, right? The sex scene between them is really the scene where you're like, come on, you got to give Jessica Alba a little more to do than this, right?
Okay, I got to tell you,
even when he's on the edge of like killing her, she's like, oh.
The most unforgivable line is when he like grabs her ass like really hard, and it's like it's the possessed hand, but he's literally never talked to this girl, and he's in her bedroom, and the hand grabs her ass, and she's just like, ooh, yeah, like, oh, she likes it, and it's like, okay, you had no consent to just grab this girl's ass.
Does not age well, this moment.
No,
I think her actual line is, I didn't think you had the guts or the balls to grab me like that. And it's like,
no. Like, do not endorse this behavior.
Yeah. Think of all the poor ladies that got their ass grabbed because of little teenagers who saw this movie. I do agree. It's weird because I think she gives a serviceable performance. She's doing the best she can, but she is just forced into this.
Yeah. She's not getting
kind
the
of
best
Jessica Rabbit sock. Yeah.
And I mean, the best material is given to literally everybody else in the movie.
But it sucks too because we're doing the movie about the stoners and the weird heavy metal guy in his truck. This isn't the movie that needs the, classic bombshell, I have nothing to do except for fillet the leading man. Like, that's not this movie. Yeah. No, right? You could have had a really
You could have given her more to do for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That is kind of a bummer.
That's my one thing. Everything else about this movie I think is perfection. I just wish she hadn't been quite such a damsel in distress and a little bit more, just a little rough around the edges.
Well, the first time I watched it, because she had the lyric book and all that stuff, I actually was under the impression up until she put on like that weird lingerie thing, I thought she was going to be the like band playing at the dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I thought that too.
I like the first time I watched, I'm like, oh, cool, and she'll play at the dance. That'll be cool. And then it's the Offspring. I'm like, also cool, but like less good for the movie itself because I have no idea why she writes lyrics now.
Yeah, it's like they just set her up, and I think it just kind of it's like she trips a little bit, and it's a little.
It's
sad.
like one of those. It's one of those like. I hate to put it this way. It's one of those male movie maker things. Like girl. There's a girl in the movie. It's gonna be okay.
We have to take this even a step further because I just remembered how much I was appalled by the scene where Eldon Henson is just making out with this girl for no reason. They don't acknowledge that he's covered in dirt. He has to smell horrible, right? He's a decomposing corpse full of fucking burrito sauce. And this girl is just like, he's really interested. And like, just is making out. And I was like, come on. I mean, this is something that we did a lot back then. So I think if I had seen this young, that wouldn't have even registered. I'd just been like, that's hilarious.
Oh, totally.
I'm glad he made out. But it is really weird to watch some of that play out.
Yeah. I mean, you do any Googling about Jessica Alba and Idle Hands, and it's just, there's some really funny, like, oh God, she's so hot. Such a oh God. Like, I understand, like, from a young male perspective, it was a crucial sexual awakening character.
However.
It's just, But anyways, no, yeah, nothing against Jessica
I
Alba.
can't
think
imagine
she's
being
great.
younger though, and her like that. I don't know that sexual
Strange.
awakening character.
I mean,
that
that
would
is the
honestly
thing that
make me feel
exists.
so bad about
I
myself
would
if this
assume,
was like
though,
my sexual
everyone
awakening character.
who was a teenager at this time, though, we had already had that with Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, that is the one, every guy my age, if you just mention Jessica Rabbit,
those
we're all
were
like,
those
holy
were the
shit.
ones, man. Like,
Yeah.
Like, it was Jessica Rabbit and Baywatch. That was like the two things that everyone my age, it was like one of those like I remember like getting Barbed Wire on VHS because we just thought that was
Oh my
pornography.
gosh.
Like, these
I
are
mean,
like,
it's pretty close.
I
that
mean,
opening
yeah.
scene.
it's as close as it can
Thought.
come. It's without being any fun. It's a really weird movie. Someday we'll talk about Barbed Wire.
I'll come back. Don't call me babe. Don't call me babe.
We'll do a Barbed Wire Tank Girl
the
double
pod
feature.
watches almost porn.
Yeah, almost. I did want to talk a little more about some of the effects in this movie because
Yes.
the kills in this movie go hard.
Awesome.
What were some of your favorite kills and how they were used in the movie, Rachel?
Well, the thing I like about a lot of the gore and the kills in this is how, for folks who are big horror fans, you're going to catch some of the nods. And at the time, when I first saw this, renting it on VHS, this was kind of early in my entry into horror, didn't catch them. But now you can kind of catch some of the influences, which I just think is just so cool. So like when Anton is following Peanut down into the basement and he like holds up the spade and it's the whole, Night of the Living Dead nod. And then he ends up decapitating him. I always think that's great. And just the way that the head comes off, I just think that it's executed really well. And then, I mean, the bottle to the head of Seth Green too. Just those
That's
two
my
characters. It's so great.
It's my that's the bottle to the head is my favorite gag. Like it's so well done too. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's never, and this is like the crazy thing. It's so good, it's never distracting. Like that is, I think, probably like the key for all these like makeup effects, and even Eldon Henson like carrying his head around and that kind of stuff. Those bits are not distracting me from the rest of the movie, and I think that is like really key and really fascinating about the movie in general. Is like I'm never distracted by the level of gore in these, like when he cuts his hand off. Even then, like, and they like throw the hand in the microwave, which I've always thought
my
is just,
favorite
like,
bit. That
the
is
coolest
so
effect.
fucking cool, man.
It is so cool.
It's awesome.
And it's, by the way, fucking hilarious. Like, I literally was like, it's one of those things I'm like, I should not be, but I'm not distracted by it. It's plot driven moment. So I'm like totally into it. And that I think is that I think is what's so unique about Idle Hands as a horror comedy is nothing's detracting from the story moving forward. All of it feels like this weirdly organic thing. And even the effects like that are really organic to the scene and to the plot itself. And I mean, yeah, all of them are just so cool.
And it fits the character too. Like you talk about throwing the hand into the microwave. What I love about like all the actions that happen between these, especially the three boys at the heart of this.
Yeah.
Everything they do makes sense for those characters. Like it makes sense that Anton would throw a hand in a microwave and just leave it there and just be like, I'm closing this and don't ever open the microwave.
Yeah.
Like that's logic.
I've defeated the devil.
That makes sense in his head and it makes sense for the character. So that's why it works so well.
I love how that scene starts with that bagel slicer and like, it honestly, it's like such like a cheap bit, but it's going to happen. And like, honestly, I was just like, oh man, I remember my parents bought one of those. It was the stupidest fucking thing because it never worked. Like, that is such a great bit. And you're like, yes, like give me more of that. Like, it's like a perfectly organic sight gag for it to work in this movie that shouldn't be like, it shouldn't be that low hanging fruit, but it's so good. Like it's
the electric knife.
Electric knife.
That's
like,
an
but
Evil Dead. Yep.
Evil Dead, and then he does a Texas Chainsaw reference, but then he like also it's like, oh, it unplugs, but they don't think, oh, Anton could just come closer,
right?
Like it's not like you couldn't use it. He just has to come over a little bit.
Well, even that one when they're just like, because there's some kind of like heaven zombies, and they're like, we'll go get antiseptic wipes and band-aids. and he's just running off character. It's just fucking fun, man.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, see, I don't even know that I feel like it's very organic, like you're saying. I personally have always been of this belief, right? Now having seen this, that it feels like they saw Seth Green and Eldon Henson, and they're like, we got to put these guys back in the fucking movie. Or that someone in the effects department's like, oh, yeah, we got a ton of other awesome shit we want to do. Because for the life of me, I don't understand why they're in the movie after the death, right? It's really this kind of awesome moment of this stoner kills his friends, and it's just brutal, right? And like even Peanut, when he's running up the stairs,
because
like,
the movie you're describing is super depressing. If you go that direction.
But I'm saying you still could have kept it comedy, right? He still had the next door neighbor. There was still the Druid lady and the girlfriend. They had other characters to play with, but to bring these guys back as these zombies that where are they? I mean, there's like a weirdness to the story, right? This is a story about an idle hand, right? A loser's hand gets filled with the devil, as we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the zombies, like, just not his parents didn't come back, but just it just feels like someone was like, these guys are money. We absolutely need them back in this movie.
I mean, there's no reason to cast them if you're not going to use them. Like, that's the whole point.
I mean, that's what I think is really fun going back. They weren't even them yet. You know what I mean?
See,
like, now they're pretty
point,
big
I
stars.
think Seth Green, because Rachel, I think you're right. Seth Green, I think, was on Buffy.
Yeah.
And I'll have to look up I don't remember his.
He pops up in a lot of shit in this era.
Like,
he was always one of the background kids.
He was a popular 90s kid. He was on a lot of the he was on a lot of the TGI Friday shows. I feel like he was probably in an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
He was in Austin Powers before this.
That's what it is.
So and he
Powers.
was in and Can't Hardly Wait.
Can't Hardly Wait. Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that those two, really
he was one of those guys.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like, it was like at the perfect time for him. And then, just him and Eldon together were just so good. But I love the reasoning behind why they did come back is just because they didn't want to go up the stairs to heaven. They were just like, nah, not yet.
Let's
just go back.
That actually is one of my favorite lines in the movie where it's like, we saw that light and these girls were singing, just like, it's so far.
Yeah. It's like, that's it. That's all that takes to be a zombie in this world.
Yeah, it's so strange, man. And then even the Druid lady, they just never really explain. They're like, we're a secret order of nuns, and we just keep passing this down.
Oh, man.
Driving around in RVs, and it's
literally one of my favorite things. Like the first time I saw this movie, and she's like looking at the map, and she's like, okay, these deaths here, and then she connects them into the pentagram, and she's just like, holy shit. I'm like, this is perfection.
yeah Well, also, it's like, if you had that, couldn't you have had your RV closer to where the fifth thing was gonna be? Like, what are you doing?
It's like,
but then
really?
It's like she's like an RV lady. She probably is starting to think she's insane, right? She's like, I've been on this mission for my whole life.
I just love it.
Just awesome, man. Just fucking funny.
She's perfect. She's
so good.
She injects the whole film with like so much mythos, even though it's pretty thin as far as logic goes. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, she's so great. She's so hot. She just brings that extra little bit that they have to give as far as like, how do you defeat this hand? Like, what is this hand? Why did it go after Anton? Like, even though some of those things, it's like, just because he was lazy, so it found him. Like, whatever. Yep, I guess so.
Honorable mention, great effect, is that withered hand on that guy in the jail. I've always loved that shit. That is
awesome.
That is a cool bit, man.
Yeah,
I've always dug that.
And how it just moves on, like, okay, like he's stuck in jail, like there's no more evil things I can do now, like I gotta find somebody else.
The devil's possessed, like, well, I guess I'm in jail now, who gives a shit?
Well, this blows. Yeah, there actually is something really cool about the decision to chop the hand off and have it go rogue, right?
Oh yeah.
And there is this, it feels like a lot of movies that deal with this, right? The demon or spirit or whatever is there to take over and crush and, defile you, make you lose your immortal soul, that kind of thing, right? This very battle within thing. And the thought that this one is just a demon that is willing to just reside in the hand only, right? And then when it gets its user, it's already taken the life, right? This kid's life is ruined. He's already spread anarchy and, mayhem everywhere. Right. When he gets Anton to chop his hand off, it feels like one of those where the demon's like, I did it. I achieved my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then the demon to go on, right? The hand to fly out of the microwave and then go terrorize the prom. I actually just was baffled by that. Again, this was the first time I've seen it, so I haven't fully processed. I was like, wait, what?
I like it when it sharpens its fingers.
That part was awesome because I think all of us thought about doing that one. Is this weird? But at one time I was like, what would happen if you stuck
It's not weird. I thought about it too.
It's so, you're like, my little finger could almost, always was in my mind, and I, of course, never wanted to do it. But I just thought it's a weird choice. Why make that choice, Rachel? What do you make of this, the hand still having business?
Oh, I mean, it's just, it's like its goal is just to create chaos, right? To do the devil's work, to do this devil's, but just cause chaos. And it's great to rip the scalps off of the lead singer of The Offspring.
That's right. You got to keep that scalp separated.
He was trying to prevent him from going to Woodstock 99.
I guess, yeah. It's so good, and it's just one of those things where I don't know why it's choosing to go to this high school dance. Maybe because it's a large gathering of kids, but I don't care. Like, it's so fun, and it's the perfect setup and perfect setting. Because that's the other thing about a lot of these, late 90s movies and stuff. Like, you got to have a party scene. You got to have a dance or a party. Right. Like, it's perfect.
You got to get all the kids in one place so they can all uniformly agree never to talk about it again. Like, that's...
What if Carrie was a shriveled up microwaved hand? Yeah, I mean, it's just this really weird bit. And I think it's a strange choice because... I think most of the comedy in the film up till now, right, comes from either Devon Sawa doing the, Mr. Hand puppet thing, or P-Nub, or I forget what Seth Green's character is, right? But those guys walking around as zombies, right, trying to fit into this world where they're not supposed to be. And so to make the choice to just cut that off and then do this kind of monster hunting riff, I thought was kind of interesting, and it's the first time in the movie. I think it's almost an important narrative beat because it separates the evil so that we can try to let Anton, to your point, have a slight heroic jaunt.
You want to give him a shot at being a hero. I think I like that the dance pretty quickly turns into like a Monster Hunter thing.
Oh, I mean, we're just doing like classic, like they're crawling through comically oversized vents, and we're in different classrooms, and it's just a literal hunt them down at that point.
Yeah.
It
works really well.
It's funny, and maybe you guys know this. So there was actually a different alternate ending.
Yes,
so
I did know that.
They shot like pretty much 70% completed a whole other ending that was super dramatic, involved a swimming pool. There was like tiles popping off the window, like off the walls. Like,
she was
Suspiria.
like gonna fall into
they're like
literally circle of hell.
Yeah, a gate of hell opens, and you can see this. Like, it's out there.
It's online.
What?
And there's like this whole other big dramatic scene, and they decided it was too much, and I love that. They went to test screenings, and they're like, it's too big.
It shifted the narrative so far in the opposite direction. They all are like, it doesn't fit the rest of this movie at all.
It's not what would happen to these characters. It's not true to what they set up in all the other stuff leading up to it. So they redid it and just simplified it and ended up getting the hand stoned. And it's so dumb.
That's another one of those, where are the receptive lungs? And but it's fucking
so
funny.
great.
But it's so perfect, and it makes sense.
Lungs. That's what you're focusing on here, Chris.
Here's what I'm saying. You guys know I watch movies a little. I
literally
break it down a little too much at times, right? And there is something very anticlimactic and nay boring at this end part for me a little bit, where it's like we're just kind of going through the motions now, right? It's all pretty well written at this point. But what I think the movie's done so well is that they've just shown you time and time again they know where they're going to go. That even in the ending they choose, where they're like, let's pare it down to the basics. Let's not get in our own way. Let's just let these characters be fun. We'll throw fucking blood everywhere. We'll do a car smashing bit in a high school, whatever. Right? We'll do the like the Transformer Bong or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, I just look at it on paper and I was like, that is a pretty anticlimactic and sad way to end this movie. But I think they just constantly are like, trust us, you're in good hands, right? Good hands, not devil's hands. And they're like, you're in good hands. We know what we're doing. And it's probably, I would imagine it's pretty rare to just bank on the just pared down kind of a little more dull ending. And I feel like it does actually work. I do wonder if you got all metaphysical at the end, if that'd be something that you wanted at the end.
I think it works.
Idle Hands.
It's in theme with the movie. Unfortunately, they did cut out the scene where they break down the skeletal, muscular, and circulatory systems for the
here we go.
for the hand itself.
Here we go.
So unfortunately, that got cut from the that's on the cutting room floor. We'll never.
My theory was that the devil was pretending to be stoned, Alex. So I had explained it away already.
Oh,
you've explained your little snarky fucking Richard Dreyfuss and Jaws diatribe, but thank you.
Oh no, I'm just letting you know that was something they cut from the film.
I'm trying to inject a little.
Was the Wes Anderson like breakdown of the skeletal structure of the hand?
Wes Anderson's Idle Hands would be high on my list.
Oh God!
Just Bill Murray's the hand.
This is how the hand works.
Yeah, Jason Schwartzman's over there.
Lots of pastels.
Actually, Tilda Swinton would be the hand. Yeah, I would love that. But no, I mean, I think
I get your point though.
It's a good way to kind of wrap out the end of this discussion, though, right? Is that this is a movie that feels like it's constantly about to fail you, right? As I watched it, almost every couple minutes, in my mind I was, all right, this is it. They've shot their load. Like, this is it. There cannot be anything else to glean from the fucking stoner who has the devil in his hand joke, right? It's a movie built on a title that leads to one joke. And every fucking couple minutes, I just kept saying, there's no way this is going to make it another hour and 20, another hour, another 40. And it does, and it fucking flies by. And it just always defaults to fun, but to Rachel's point, they really nail the horror stuff, so you don't feel like you're being cheated out of both genres like some of these movies do. I was honestly super impressed. I could not believe how much they got out of this one sight gag.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting and really fascinating way to make a horror comedy. Like, there's no doubt about it that me personally, that I think it works. And yeah, I think that I guess you'd say less climactic ending makes more sense to me. And like also has a better, and yeah, we go out on a joke. And like, quite frankly, if you're going to make a horror comedy, why would you not go out on a joke? Like, that's just, getting the devil hand high and then, killing it is just like one of those things. Like,
it's just, it's super self-aware. It's
so stupid. Like, that's like the thing is, I think it's like, it's so stupid that it works because it's self-awareness.
And it subverts what you expect. Like the other ending that they filmed, that's what I think people expected.
Yeah.
And when they got it, it was like, I don't know. It was okay.
Yeah.
But like by giving you what you kind of don't expect, it actually ends up working more. Like when they actually do kill the hand and it just kind of goes poof. Yeah. And Seth Green's character is like, that's it. It's like, it's actually really funny.
Yeah.
Because you expect it. You expect it to do something. You expect it to explode or scream or something, but they don't give you that. And I think that that's really funny. And I think that that's really smart. Yeah. And I'm so glad they went that way. The other ending's cool. Like, definitely check it out because it's kind of fun to see it now. I
absolutely am going to,
I 100% think that they made the right choice. And it's cool that the studio backed them and brought the writers back and they did it the right way. And I think that's super rad.
It delayed the release of the movie like 6 months, I think.
Oh,
it was some crazy amount of time.
Which also, this is a really tragic thing. I mean, on multiple levels, because of this, when this movie was released, it was released 10 days before Columbine. So it came out and then Columbine happened and it really just the atmosphere in America changed, and the conversation around teenagers and violence on TV and was changed on a national level. And this film, unfortunately, got kind of tied into that mix.
Yeah, and I think it is one of those like movies that we'll watch it. Like that's always the thing is like, especially at that time in our lives, like everybody took everything at face value. Like Marilyn Manson's the best example of this. Like everyone took Marilyn Manson at face value and like he's the reason all these kids are the way that they are. And like Idle Hands is a great example of like taking something at face value, maybe like, oh, a kid's hand's possessed by the devil. Yeah. All I need to know is the premise and I know it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's like,
exactly.
That's not what this movie is at all. And like, if you're like, again, it was one of those things that is just like a victim of circumstance, and there's no.
Yeah.
And
well,
it's just,
it's hard. I mean, that was a earth-shattering event in our lives, right? Like I remember being in school and seeing all that, and it was one of those. It felt.
We got sent home.
It's hard to even explain what that was like because now it's unfortunately so fucking common.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, even at a young age, that was one of the first news stories where I took pause and I was like, "What the fuck." Mm-hmm. And it, I mean, that just happens sometimes to me. I remember I was working at the movie theater when the first ever Spider-Man trailer came out, and it had the catching the helicopter between the Twin Towers, and then 9/11 happened, and we had to pull all of our, disc or VHS, whatever they were back then. They pushed the movie. They had to, and that shit just happens. But I think what is good is because, again, I think Rachel said it, and that's how I remember this, right? It's a movie where everything is showing, the face card showing all say stupid. Yeah. But I really think Idle Hands is anything but stupid. I mean, it's really clever in its construction, and it's very obvious in its love for, both horror and comedy. And I think after having seen it, I do rank it amongst my favorite horror comedies, right? I think Evil Dead 2 and Shaun of the Dead kind of set a really unrealistic precedent for most movies. I think this one's as good as any of the rest that I've ever seen. And I honestly have to say I was shocked. I was giving myself, I was like, this will probably be like, like a 1.5, 2 out of 5 kind of movie. I really, really liked this movie. Fun. Yeah, it sneaks the fuck up on you, right? You do not expect it to be what it is. Yep. So Rachel, I thank you so much for bringing this movie. It was awesome.
So you're so welcome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
All right, Rachel, that's it for Idle Hands. Would you like to tell everyone one more time where they can find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Vinyl Girl, GRRRL. And yeah, you can find me talking about just movie bullshit all the time on both of those platforms.
Love it.
So, yeah.
Hey, that's our beat. No. Well, thank you again for making the time, Rachel. You're always one of our favorite guests. You're welcome back anytime. Anytime you have other great 90s movies I missed, you're welcome back.
I can't believe you missed this one, man. I really thought
feels like it was built for me, and I skipped it.
I really thought we had talked about it. I thought you'd seen it before.
There's a lot of good 90s movies that came out. They're really, especially in horror, like it really was like the rebirth of a whole new kind of horror. So it makes sense. It's easy. It's easy to, you can't see it all. So
I fucking try,
Griffey's such a big Devon Sawa guy, so it's just.
I'm not ashamed of that.
I didn't say you were. I'm saying you are.
All right, that's it, guys. Remember, every day this month, a new horror movie because we've done Lost Our Minds. So we'll see you guys back tomorrow for another amazing jaunt into the horror abyss. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you, Rachel, for your time.
You're the best.
We'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.